Ohio State is preparing to work with its fifth offensive coordinator in 5 years. And if the Buckeyes want the offense to reach its full potential, collaboration among the coaches is essential.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Jay Stevens. During today's show, we will discuss Ryan Day's role as he works with another offensive coordinator, as well as potential pitfalls in Arthur Smith's first year in Columbus. But first, the Buckeyes offense in 2026 is expected to take a step forward and to be more efficient than it was a year ago. Last year, Brian Hartline was the play caller, and it just seemed like things didn't click and flow like they should. So you have Julian Sayin back and the best player in college football back and Jeremiah Smith. Those are reasons, big reasons why the Buckeyes offense should be a whole lot better. They're also going to be led by a different offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith, who comes from the NFL, was a longtime offensive coordinator, then a head coach and back being an OC. He is experienced. He's not a novice play caller, but the Buckeyes will be working with their fifth OC in 5 years. 2022 was Kevin Wilson, 23, Brian Hartline, 24, Chip Kelly, 25, Brian Hartline, but he called plays in 25 for the first time, 26, Arthur Smith. 5 OCs in 5 years is insane. And if you're thinking about how it's going to impact the team as a whole, the coaches that are assistants on offense must work together to make this as smooth of a transition as it can be. Because, man, 5 in 5 years is hard. Very, very hard. Think about how it's going to impact just the offense as a whole. But as a quarterback, and Julian Sayin, you want some continuity with the guy that's calling the plays and with the coaches working with you. You want somebody to be able to be there that has been there for a while, that knows lay of the land, that knows from 1 year to the next, he sees your growth, he sees your development, and he knows what buttons to push for you to be better. Julian Sayin hasn't had that at all. His first year, he had Chip Kelly, an experienced OC who knew how to be a little bit more creative and intentional with certain calls in the run game that were helpful down the stretch, especially in the playoff as the Buckeyes won the national championship. Last year, he had a novice play caller in Brian Hartline, and it just didn't work out. It just wasn't the way that I think for Hartline nor Sayin that they thought the year was going to go. This year, he has another seasoned OC. The difference is Arthur Smith comes from the NFL. That's a different game. And so for Julian Sayin specifically, he can look at Arthur Smith's experience in the NFL and then sit up here and say, well, while that is great, here's what's even better. My QB coach is the same. Billy Fessler has been in Columbus the entire time Julian Sayin has been there. And while he's been there the entire time, that's somebody that he can lean on, he can trust and say, he's been in my ear since day one. So while there are different offensive coordinators and different play callers, Billy Fessler knows my language, and he knows how to help me be a better quarterback. But it's just not Billy Fessler. Think about it. You're bringing back an experienced offensive line. Well, I think 4 returning starters from last year's team in Montgomery, Hensman, Sturveld, and Daniels. That's huge. That's huge. That is something that Ryan Day should be able to lean on all throughout the season, especially in some of the bigger games. We'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But while that's huge, that's something that with returning starters on the offensive line, they can learn from what Hartline and learn from Kelly and learn from even Keenan Bailey, who's a co-OC this year once again, learn from all those guys and say, while we have a new offensive coordinator, we know what's expected of us. Now, the language is going to be a little bit different, and Arthur Smith's play calls are going to be longer than normal, and the roles in the offense were going to be different for some guys, or maybe more run calls and more maybe schematics changes in the game that'll help be big plays down the road. All that stuff may be real, but 5 OCs in 5 years is crazy. Like that's crazy stuff. You got 6 years of Kevin Wilson that went back to some of the latter years of Urban Meyer being there, and Kevin Wilson's one of the most slept-on offensive coordinators in the country. I know at one point he left to be the coach at Tulsa. I don't know if he is still there, but he was at Oklahoma. Great run game. At Ohio State, great run game. All of a sudden, you're like, man, I was like, bring Kevin Wilson back. They didn't. I think it would have been great for Ryan Day, but Ryan Day wanted something a little bit different. Think about you when you've done something for 5 years in a row, and for those 5 years, things are different. Man, that's insane. It's hard. It's very, very hard to keep up if year after year after year, things are changing. And not only for Julian Sayin, who is going to be hearing the play calls and needs the OC to be at a certain level for his own development to get better. Everybody needs continuity. So it's not just a collaborative effort among all the assistant coaches. They need to lean on each other. So Arthur Smith is coming in along with Cortez Hankton, but the coaches that are still there, Keenan Bailey, Carlos Lachlan, Tyler Bowen, those coaches are still there. And so those that are there from last year, man, Billy Fessler, they can work together to make this transition as seamless as possible. It's going to be hard, though. Some of the early betting lines came out for some Ohio State games via our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Ohio State, they are 1.5-point underdogs against Texas and Indiana. Those are both road games. Texas week 2. I believe the game against Indiana is October 17th. And then they're 12.5-point favorites against Michigan. Of course, that is Thanksgiving weekend that Saturday. So some of the early betting lines are some things that even Arthur Smith right now can say, oh, they're doubting us going on the road against Texas and Indiana. Well, the Buckeyes beat Texas the last couple of times they played them. They lost to Indiana last year, but I'm here now. I'm the guy in charge. I'm running the offense. The offense that wasn't really hitting on all cylinders that night, that Saturday night in the Big Ten title game. So while that's real, here's what else. There's something else that's really real. Arthur Smith is a competitor. You know who else can be classified as competitors on the offense? Billy Fessler, Cortez Hankton, Carlos Lachlan, Tyler Bowen, Keenan Bailey, all of those guys. I don't know if there's 5. I just saw 5 on my screen. All of those guys are competitors. And while they are competitors, here is one thing they can do right now. Look at those early betting lines and say, y'all doubting us. We got something for y'all week 2. We got something for the Hoosiers who beat the Buckeyes last year in the Big Ten title game. We got something for them. Well, I have a plan in place for them. What you must do is make sure you work together so that the offense is everything it can be so it hits its full potential, because that is a goal every single year, is for the offense to reach its full potential. If last year's full potential is what we saw last year for the Buckeyes, that's not great. That's not great at all. That's not good enough. It's not. But this is a new year. This is a new coaching staff. This is a new team. Things are different right now. Here is my hope for Ohio State football, that this time next year, I am not coming on here and saying, well, the Buckeyes are working with their 6th offensive coordinator in 6 years. That would be silly. That would be crazy, especially for a team led by a man in Ryan Day that puts an emphasis on continuity and keeping guys around. If that's what happens, man, that conversation might be a little bit spicy, might be a little bit interesting. But the best case scenario for next year, as far as the coordinators, you keep Robbie Disher, your special teams coordinator, for another year. You find a way to keep Patricia for a 3rd year. And then you find a way to keep Arthur Smith for a 2nd year. If that's the case, that would be the first time in a while that's the way that Ohio State's assistant coaching staff has been. I haven't gone back and looked at recently the 22 DC. That was Jim Knowles. So you had an experienced OC in Kevin Wilson, a new DC in Jim Knowles. I don't remember if Ryan Day had a special teams coordinator that year, because for a while he was trying to divvy up the responsibilities and spread them out for assistant coaches to handle certain roles with the special teams. I'm not sure if they had a special teams coordinator, but I do know this. If you can keep all 3 guys for 2 years in a row, that would be a massive win. That would be a massive win, but there are some potential pitfalls that Arthur Smith might endure during his first year in Columbus. I got a list of them. I'll unveil it after the break. This episode is brought to you by Rougiette. The NHL playoffs are here, where every shift matters. Every moment is intense, and the pressure is at its highest. And just like performance matters on the ice, guys, it matters off the ice too. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you get ready and stay ready when it matters. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, combines clinically proven ingredients in a simple mint that dissolves under your tongue. It works fast, often in about 15 minutes, and can last up to 36 hours. And they also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about confidence and feeling like yourself again. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL and get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Rougiette, performance medicine for men. Thank you for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes, for making this show your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Get your daily Ohio State fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to claim your free trial. I'm sure many of you, when you heard the open of the show and about the Buckeyes having 5 OCs in 5 years, you were kind of like, is this real life right now that the Buckeyes have had 5 OCs in 5 years? That is real. And even though that's real, Kevin Wilson wasn't calling plays in 2022. That was Ryan Day. In 2023, Hartline was the OC, but Day was calling plays. 2024, Kelly called plays. 2025, Hartline called plays. This year, you're getting at somebody else calling plays, Arthur Smith. In that time span, 3 of the offensive coordinators in this 5-year time span, 3 of them were experienced. Wilson, Kelly, and Smith. The novice is Brian Hartline. And even though Ryan Day called plays in 2023, you can tell that the 23 and 25 offenses weren't clicking like they should have been at Ohio State. There's one guy that's involved with both of those as the OC. I don't know if it's all his fault, but man, you got to connect the dots sometimes. And while you're connecting the dots, one potential pitfall, which might be a little bit weird because I value experience as an offensive play caller, is maybe Arthur Smith just doesn't connect with these players. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe his NFL experience and the aspiration that these players have of playing in the NFL, those aspirations are real, but maybe his language, maybe his way of doing things, maybe the way he communicates just doesn't hit. And I'm not here to say it will or it won't, but let's just say it doesn't. You got to go to Austin. You got to go to Bloomington. You play Iowa. You play Illinois. You play Nebraska. You play Michigan. You play USC and Oregon. I say it like that on purpose because if it don't hit, we might get some clunky games. You might win the games. Like, I think Ohio State can beat Texas. I don't know if they're going to beat Texas. I think Ohio State can beat Indiana. I don't know if they're going to beat Indiana. I know they can beat Oregon and USC. I'm not sure if they'll beat the 2 West Coast teams. If it doesn't hit, it could be some interesting. We can have some interesting conversations here on this show. And as I say that, I have flashbacks right now in my brain, in the memory bank, going back to, I think, the 2022 season, either 22 or 21. It was coming off an off week. The Buckeyes played 6 games in the first half, and off week, then 6 games the last half of the season. Only had 1 off week that year. The year is not exactly in my head, but I remember the Buckeyes blew the doors off Iowa. I think they scored 50 points, and Iowa only scored 6 or 7. It was like a beatdown. But I came on this show, myself and Jeff Hunt, after the game or throughout that week and said, something didn't look right. Something didn't feel right. And you're like, you complaining about a 50-point blowout? Maybe the Buckeyes had 49. I don't know. It was just a beatdown game. The margin of victory was wide, but something in my eyes told me this doesn't really look like the team it should be. Ultimately, down the road, they lost to Michigan again, or maybe it was the first year. I don't know. It just something didn't feel right. And then the second half of the year, things just didn't click. They were winning, but man, things didn't click like they should have been. I'm not putting any blame on any coach or any player. It just didn't feel right. Didn't look right at all. If that happens again, where not only the communication doesn't hit, but man, you get off an off week and the offense looks clunky. There's players that are in the wrong spots. You're getting false starts and offsides calls and defensive pass interferences or offensive pass interference. I'm about the offense, sorry. And you're sitting here like, man, what's going on? your boy might have flashbacks, and I don't want to have flashbacks on this show. I don't want to be somebody coming on here saying it feels like deja vu. I don't want to come on here and do that, but you have to make sure that Arthur Smith's communication hits like it should. Let's just say Julian Sayin is the same quarterback he was a year ago. I don't personally believe that's going to be the case because you can see in every Ohio State quarterback that's had 2 years under Ryan Day, there have been improvements. Year 2 with Fields, year 2 with Stroud, and then year 2 with Sayin. The weird thing about this, the guys that get multiple years at Ohio State are the best throwers Ryan Day has ever had. Stroud, probably the best ball placement specialist we have ever seen at Ohio State. Probably. Fields, the most athletic quarterback Ryan Day has ever coached at Ohio State. Sayin, in year 2, we don't know what's going to happen. But at worst, he's going to be the most accurate quarterback this upcoming year. That's at worst. At worst. So if that's the worst that's going to happen, I think you're going to like the results. I think you will. Ohio State right now with Arthur Smith. Another pitfall is one that I think has actually been real for a lot of people is the uncertainty about what the offense is going to be like. A lot of the heavier sets that Arthur Smith for, a lot of these scenarios where not only heavier sets, but heavy on the run, when you have a dog on the outside of Jeremiah Smith or an alien or someone who's not from this world, whatever you want to call it, Jeremiah Smith is just that dude. If you want to put an Ohio State receiver out there and say, compare that receiver to Jeremiah Smith is better. Like, there's a reason why I made him in the 5 players who were the most impactful players in the Ryan Day era that we talked about yesterday. If you missed that show, go check it out. That was probably one of the most fun, random thoughts I've had in a long time discussing it here on the show, discussing the 5 that were the most impactful. The next group, that is a group of 3. All 8 of them, hold a spot as being the most impactful players. 5, that's the list. 3, honorable mention. You might say, well, Jeremiah Smith shouldn't be there. He's still actively playing in the scarlet and gray. That's true. But, buddy, it's very hard to deny his impact since he's been at Ohio State. Broke records his freshman year. He's still breaking records now. He easily should be win the Biletnikoff Award this year, be a consensus All-American, be first-team All-Big Ten, win Big Ten Receiver of the Year, maybe Big Ten Player of the Year. Will he win the Heisman? I don't know. It's very difficult as a receiver. But, I mean, Jeremiah Smith is that guy. You had to put 3 players on him to slow him down. If you try to do double teams, he's probably going to win. If you put one-on-one, it's night-night. Turn the lights out. The party's over for your team. For Ohio State, that's another chip to pay there. The Arthur Smith experience is going to be interesting because if there are heavier sets and an emphasis on the run and you're not leaning into the weapons Ohio State has on offense, that would be a problem, a massive, massive problem. Now, as I'm going through some of these things, I'm reminding myself, 1, we don't know what the offense is going to look like. We didn't get a view of that during the spring game because, well, they're not going to. Also, there's a reason why Chris Henry Jr. didn't run with the starters in the spring game. Arthur Smith and Ryan Day don't want to let anybody know what number 15 is doing with the ones, because if you give them a little bit, just a small peek, buddy, that could be bad news bears in week 2. I don't believe the Buckeyes are going to be losing to Ball State week 1. I don't think that at all. They could do what happened in 2019. You get up by a large margin by halftime. The starters play 1 series or maybe 2. You pull them, you put the backups in. That should happen more often than not this year. It should happen easily because the Buckeyes are that talented. I reminded myself, we don't know what the offense is going to look like. We don't know what it's going to look like at all. 2, in the spring game, the Buckeyes, outside of Chris Henry Jr., weren't at full strength. Your top 2 backs were out. You didn't have your full starting 5 on the offensive line. Cerville and I believe Daniels were out. So you're also working with a new tight end in Nate Roberts, who you're not really sure if he's going to be the type of tight end Ohio State needs this year. You don't know. We hope we can figure the thing out, but we don't know. So there are potential pitfalls, yes, but there are also things we don't know. What we do know is that through all 5 years, past 5 years we're talking about, Ryan Day has been there the entire time, which leads us to continue the conversation about Ryan Day's role working with a new OC, his continuity and him sticking around is important in Arthur Smith's first year in Columbus. Thank you for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes, making it your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Guys, once again, Ryan Day has picked another experienced OC to lead the offense. He got blessed with Kevin Wilson sticking around in Ryan Day's early years as being the head coach at Ohio State. He was fortunate to get Chip Kelly. I mean, he tried to get all the coaches skipped. Bill O'Brien in 2024. Bill O'Brien was there for a couple of weeks and then said, no, I'm going to be the head coach at Boston College. There is more money. And I don't know for sure, but I believe the serious medical condition of his son and allowing him to still keep the same doctor there in the Northeast was very important to him. And that could have been influential in him getting that job and sticking around there in the Northeast where he was at, I believe, New England, the Patriots, before coming to Ohio State. And so Ryan Day's been here for everything the entire time. 22 in Wilson, 23 in Hartline, 24 in Kelly, 25 Hartline again, and then 26 Arthur Smith. The one thing I think when it comes to Ryan Day is that he knows how to work with an experienced offensive coordinator. I wish he allowed Kevin Wilson to call plays. I really, really do. The offense in 21 and 22 would have been better. I know there were injuries that plagued how efficient and release of the offense could have been, but Kevin Wilson knows how to run an efficient offense. He knows how to get the best out of the run game. And as long as guys are healthy, the offense would have been a whole lot better than it was. So when Ryan Day works with some experienced OCs, he trusted Kevin Wilson. He trusted Chip Kelly. He learned to trust Brian Hartline. He's going to trust Arthur Smith. You don't bring a guy with that resume into Ohio State and say, well, I know he paying you a lot of money. I know you've done a lot of good things in the National Football League. You're even a head coach for a few years. But, baby, this is my operation. You're coming into my territory and on my turf, I call the shots. Yeah, you're going to signal in, or you're going to speak in the play call to Julian Sayin, but you're going to repeat my words. I'm going to tell you, is it 5, 8, or 58 on the play sheet? If I say 5, don't go to 58. Stick here. If it's 3rd and 8, and we ran this one play 5 years ago to work, but we didn't do it in practice, and you got this one play, you know it worked every time, but I don't feel that play right now. You better go with the one we did 5 years ago and just let me just call a play, have the right language so they know what to do, and let it ride. No. Ryan Day must trust this man. He must trust him wholeheartedly. Because if Ryan Day doesn't trust him, we've seen what Ryan Day is like as a coach. He doesn't trust somebody. Things don't go well that year. And I'm not saying you're going to lose 3 or 4 or 5 games. I'm not going that far. But think about the year Kerry Combs was a DC. You lose to Oregon in 2021. The next thing you know, there's a moving of coordinators and a promotion that I don't think was officially announced. The coach's name escaped me right now, but the next thing you know, Matt Barnes got promoted, we think, and it wasn't official, to defensive coordinator. As soon as the Buckeyes' last game was over, he went to Memphis to be the DC. As soon as he was working on that contract, working on the negotiations. So as soon as the year was over, it may have been less than 24 hours after the loss, Matt Barnes was announced as the DC of Memphis. Well, why did that happen? I mean, it was pretty obvious early on. Kerry Coombs wasn't the guy. And it wasn't just a loss to Oregon. You go back to the week before that. Ohio State almost lost to Minnesota on opening night. I think it was a Thursday night kickoff game. The game was on Fox. But they almost lost that game. Why? Ryan Day promoted the wrong guy, and then there were trust issues. The final year of Jim Knowles. What do you remember that after the loss to Oregon, there was an off week, and then you played Nebraska. And, buddy, there were some real come-to-Jesus conversations. happening behind closed doors because Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, things just weren't working. It wasn't good. And Ryan Day said, no, absolutely not. This is my operation. I'm the head ball coach, and what we just did in Eugene, Oregon isn't good enough. It's not good enough at all. We should not have a scenario where we need our quarterback to get down quick enough so there's time to stop the clock again and kick a field goal to win a game. No. What also happened in that game? Denzel Berkman had his worst game of his career. Who was leading the team? Jim Knowles. Ryan didn't really trust him like that. And we saw what happened, not just in the off week, but also beyond. It just seemed like there was some clunkiness with some of the plays with that unit. Well, Ryan didn't trust him. Ryan Day has learned to trust in some of the oddest ways. Some of the coaches allowing another promotion for Brian Hartline and saying this is the right trajectory for Hartline's career. He trusted him. A novice. A man that needed help with calling plays. He trusted him and he helped him. He has to trust Arthur Smith. That's Ryan Day's job. Ryan Day wants to be the CEO of Buckeye football and not have to call plays on offense, not have to worry about the defense, and not be so tapped into special teams that it takes him away from doing his job as being the head coach. He doesn't want to do anything but coach. And while he only wants to coach, he also must trust Arthur Smith. However, if things go wrong, Ryan Day must speak up and say, look, this ain't good enough. You can trust him, but also speak up and don't be afraid. I don't think Ryan Day's going to be afraid to speak up at all, but he must speak up. If the offense isn't flowing right, if the run game isn't consistent, if it's too much pass, not enough run, too much run, not enough pass, speak up. One thing Ryan Day said a year ago that was very eye-opening to the collaboration it is when calling plays was that it was simply that. It was a collaboration. It was something that all the coaches involved worked together to call plays. There are conversations through the headset. There are communication about what's being seen on the field and what's happening on the field so everybody's on the same page. While there is a collaboration, Ryan Day must know he still has the veto power. Here's my thought, and I don't think this is going to be controversial, but it might be because of how people view Ryan Day. I'll be perfectly fine if Ryan Day calling plays again. I would. I absolutely would. Ryan Day could have an offensive coordinator, maybe a guy with NFL experience, but Ryan Day, the play caller, is one of the best offensive play calls in the country. I mean, people marveled at, we're not Lincoln Riley. There was an assistant coach. I think it was at TCU a few years ago. People were like, oh, he's the next guy. Garrett Riley. Marvel. He is the next guy. Great offensive mind. Lincoln Riley, great offensive mind. Lane Kiffin, my gosh, one of the best play calls in the country. Ryan Day is in the conversation as being one of the best play calls in the country. Last year, Oklahoma, when their defense started to hit, Brent Venables went back to calling plays and said, this is what I do. Yes, I am the head coach at Oklahoma, but calling defense, that's in my blood. This is what I do. And as Ryan Day continues to go away from calling plays and hiring offensive coordinators that allow him to do just that, I don't think Ryan Day should ever forget the fact that Ryan Day made his name in the NFL and then in college as being a great offensive mind and a developer of quarterbacks. And Ryan Day knows if he has to, he could pull that play sheet out, get a little bit louder on the headset, and let that thing ride. Let it go. Not like what happened late in the year last year, I believe in the Big Ten title game or the playoff game, one of the two or both Ryan Day called plays. I know the Miami game for sure. One thing we know is that when Ryan Day calls plays and it's a consistent thing, baby, hits like clockwork. It was the Miami game because Heartland had already been promoted or taken the job at USF. And I said going into that game, well, Ryan Day is calling plays, it may take a quarter or a quarter and a half or even a half of football for Ryan Day to get into a rhythm. And once Ryan Day went away from some things and really never tapped into the tempo, he did a little bit and then they threw a pick. But once he kind of got into a rhythm, you saw the offense hit at a different level. So his role, trust Arthur Smith. But, buddy, if you have to call plays again, go ahead and do that thing. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On Buckeyes. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Buckeyes so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Buckeyes ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and a whole lot more. Head to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On Big Ten. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes right here on a Tuesday. We'll see you next time.